Hi, it's Joe Morgan with the Tech Leader Spotlight podcast, where we interview tech leaders to learn about their journey and leadership lessons learned along the way. This show is brought to you by the Tech Professional Money Operating System, where we help tech professionals who know they're doing well financially, but aren't sure if it's enough and aren't sure if they're fully optimizing everything. We help you with things like investing cash wisely, making the most of stock awards, minimizing your tax bill, creating overall, we create clarity and confidence so you can spend less time worrying about your money and more times living the life you want. If you'd like more information, look me up on LinkedIn at Joe Morgan at Best Financial Life. Today on the podcast, I'm very excited to have Alex Leendertsen, who's a senior full stack engineer at Saronic, and he's an experienced leader who specializes in end-to-end solutions across both cloud and on-site systems. Welcome to the podcast, Alex.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So end-to-end solutions across both cloud and on-site systems. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have the unique experience of being a full stack engineer in the truest sense of the word. So I get to work on front end websites, apps, actually implementing the button clicks, the forms that you fill out, that sort of thing, and then seeing that data go all the way into the back end, um, over the network, into the database, storing it, how it's deployed into the cloud, or possibly not even into the cloud, maybe even locally. So some places don't use the cloud, for example. Yeah, I mean, it's I get to see the end-to-end trip there, so that's a lot of fun.
So is that so I'm not in tech, I don't work in tech. So explain to me why that's unusual.
Well, most roles are split between the front end, the part that you actually see, so the website, the app, whatever it is, and then the back end. So those are typically separate teams, separate specialties, that sort of thing. But I have a lot of experience doing the whole thing. And it makes it a little bit more efficient if there's, a bug or some new feature that needs to be implemented. I can just, do the whole vertical.
Yeah, I imagine it would. Okay, let's go to our first question we typically ask here on the podcast. What does leadership in the tech space mean to you?
I think the main thing is finding the maximum level on the performance trust matrix that you can get. So in tech, a lot of times I think we focus a little bit too much on performance solely by itself. Are you executing on projects within the time frame? Are you executing with extremely high quality? Are you within budget? Those types of things without really considering, are we very trustworthy to both our customers and also the people we work with? I could be a high performing manager or leader, but does anybody actually want to work with me? I can't do everything myself. I need a team. So I think maintaining that high performance, but also maintaining those relationships with others and making sure we're on the same team and people want to work with each other is also really important. Um, and there's kind of another point in there too, which is just having a really win-win mindset. Especially in big tech companies, it's easy to get into the kind of this mindset of zero sum performance reviews and just kind of really only thinking about how your performance is evaluated. And, you know, because there is maybe some ranking going on, like it's very easy to get in the mindset of, well, I need to do better, maybe at the expense of this other person, but it's good for me anyways. So I think, making sure you're not doing that and you're staying trustworthy is really important.
Hmm. So the performance trust matrix, I'd never heard that term. So the trust part, let's focus on that because that seems to be a good place to focus. So you mentioned having a win-win mindset versus the zero-sum performance reviews, but as a leader, what are other things that you've seen leaders do that engender trust?
Well, doing, are they actually trying to contribute to the group and are they keeping their promises? Are they, are they on the same team and are they, they're helping us along and are they providing actual leadership? And then more crucially, if what they said is wrong or if the direction was wrong, which does happen, can we all admit that this was wrong? And, can we take ownership and accountability over those mistakes? That's really the trust part. From what I found, it's really easy for some leaders to just kind of brush that all under the rug, and it's like kind of like it didn't happen, and or even worse, it's somebody else's problem, and it's just not really somebody you want to work for, or that you want to trust, or that you want to go the extra mile for. Some of these projects are tough, and you need to really encourage people to go the extra mile to get stuff done.
Yeah, that's great. I love the way you put that. The tech world has so much collaboration in it, and it's one of the reasons I enjoy these conversations because I come from the finance world, which does not have collaboration in it. And I was sitting here thinking, okay, my past bosses, how many of them fit any of this? And it's like, nope.
Yeah, yeah.
Tech is very unique that way, I think.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, I think somewhat rare that you get kind of both the high trust, high performance rating. I mean, it's very clear when it happens. Like if you have a good manager or a good leader on your team that fits those things, it's awesome. I mean, it's great. You don't want to leave, and that's the point, right? Like that team will stay together for quite a while, and that is what happens. Versus other leaders and managers who don't have that, it's kind of just a lot of attrition.
Yeah, and I've seen like well, I'm sure you have too, see whole teams move companies
Yeah,
as well. And that's, as a leader, if you get yourself in a position where you have that high performance, high trust, high loyalty aspect, man, it can really just skyrocket your career, especially if your eyes are open and you're looking elsewhere and thinking about the whole landscape of the job market. Because I've seen some salary increases, some comp increases that are pretty crazy. Not
yeah,
lately, but over time.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, given the fact I mentioned not lately because all the challenges in the job market today, what piece of advice would you recommend to create resiliency in the case of layoffs?
Well, I think making sure you're always learning something new and pushing yourself to whatever the next step is really crucial, and it's crucial now more than ever. Um, I think if you have that mindset day to day, and you're always pushing yourself to learn more or take on a new challenge or succeed at something else, if that day comes where you do get laid off, it's just going to be that much easier to switch and pivot to something else because you're already used to doing it.
Mhm.
And as we know in tech these days, it seems like not much is guaranteed. So, the more you can pivot and learn new things, the better. And I mean, AI is obviously the big example of that recently. Those who are learning it faster are just accelerating more. So, I think that just learning mindset is really, really important more now than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you, and this is probably an unfair question, but I'm just curious how you might think about this. How do you figure out what's next? I mean, obviously AI is the big thing right now, and it's been around for a while, but then it just kind of popped and everybody put AI in their job title. But how do you sort of figure out what's next, maybe within AI or whatever, not necessarily specifics of what is next, but how do you go about doing that?
Well, I think it's important to more follow your own curiosity and then use AI as a tool to do that. I don't, I mean, it seems like everyone who's trying to make predictions about what next is just wrong daily, it seems like. So,
Yeah.
find out whatever you're curious about, go explore it, use AI to explore it, of course. It's so helpful across the board at everything. I would just recommend following your own curiosity. And I mean, it always leads to some new discovery, some benefit, you're meeting new people that are doing cool things you didn't even realize exist, and they might have a job opportunity. So.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the most important financial decision you've made in your tech career, whether it's about compensation or equity or personal spending or whatever it is?
I think the most important thing I've done is just to track everything. There's a great saying, what gets measured gets managed. And that is really true. I mean, if you track, and I mean, there's a dozen great apps to do this for you, of course, but you know, the second you start tracking what you're actually spending and earning, it becomes quite clear where things are going right and then wrong. So probably the biggest advantage I've noticed. You know, there's the obvious case where you're spending too much money somewhere, and you can immediately notice that and then hopefully stop. But then there's also the positive side too, like maybe you've made a good investment and you're actually seeing what compound interest actually does, and then that kind of gets addicting, and then that's kind of the good side of it too.
Yeah, the compound interest thing, everybody knows about it, but until you really experience it, it's not real obvious how it works. And then on the
Yeah.
spending is so important. So you track your spending. So let me ask you a yes, no question. So don't give me a number, but just yes, no. If I were to ask you how much money you spent last year on just regular normal living expenses, like that one number, do you think you would know what that is?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's a question I ask a lot of people in my line of work when I'm looking to work with them, and almost everybody says no. And that is, I mean, if you want to live a long life, do everything you want to do in life, there's a simple mathematical equation from the financial side that gets you there. It's what you have today plus what you make minus what you spend. So spending is in that holy trinity of financial planning. And yet we just have this aversion to looking at our own spending. It makes us feel guilty, or it makes us really judge ourselves harshly. And if you can somehow get over that and just get to where you're observing, it's so powerful. How long have you been doing this? How many years have you been doing that?
That's a good question. I mean, I've been doing it fairly closely for maybe as much as 10 years at this point.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's the advantages are just so huge. Like you said, it is very challenging because it does kind of make you realize where you're, you know, maybe you could do better, but it's definitely good in the long run for sure.
Well, if you can get beyond the guilt feelings, which is bound to
Yeah.
be some of those, but if you can use those maybe to understand that what you're really trying to do is, okay, I spent the money here. Did I get value out of that? Right? And either you did or you didn't. And if you're feeling guilty about it, you probably didn't, or maybe you did, but you probably didn't. And that's a way to adjust behavior going forward. Whereas for somebody who never looks at their spending, it's not just that you have subscriptions you don't know about. It's that you're consciously spending money on things that you really don't want to.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's not like every debt or, you know, concert ticket is bad. Like some of them are like very good experiences that you would do again. And those are things you can put, you know, in that good bucket. But like I said, some of those are not. And, you know, you can look back and say, well, I didn't need to spend that several $100s on that ticket or whatever. I could have put that to a better use.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast today, Alex. You've really given us a lot to think about.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So just as a reminder, this is sponsored by the Money Operating System, where tech leaders gain clarity and control of their finances so they can live out the rest of their lives with intention. If you want to know more about us, look me up on LinkedIn, Joe Morgan, Best Financial Life.